Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of NASCAR DFS Preview. I'm AustYn.
And I'm Yacs.
And we are going to Kansas Speedway for the Hollywood Casino 400. This is, we have 3 races left in the regular season. Season is really flying by. Cannot wait for next year for qualifying and things like that. We still have the preset lineup, so, we're just going to keep fighting and trucking through it, I guess.
Yeah.
So Kyle Larson dominated last week at Texas. No shocker really there. He led most of the laps, and but you had to have him in your lineup. A lot of the tournaments that I was in, he was 82 or so % owned. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if he did poorly, you were probably still going to perform pretty well.
Yeah,
but
the ones I were in FanDuel, it was like 50s. Most of them were around the 50 range of percentage owned.
Yep, and being that he won the race, led most of the laps, everything like that, and he's first in points, of course, he locked himself in the Final Four. So the winner of this race, if it's not Larson, will lock themselves in to race with him and compete at Phoenix. This is the last mile-and-a-half track of the season. Mm-hmm. So next week we have Martinsville, which will be very crucial for DraftKings. Is it going to be a night race? I haven't really looked.
I didn't look either. I don't think it is. I think it's going to be like a afternoon race, but I don't know. I can't say that for certain.
Either way, they're going to Martinsville. 500 laps. That'll be difficult. This week we have 267. You can be a little more aggressive with this week's strategy in terms of, like with Texas, it was totally different. This week's a little more tricky. So yeah, Kyle Larson starting on the pole, locked himself in. Just trying to think if there's any other big news this year or this week. Not that I can really think of.
No.
Brandon Jones locked himself in the Xfinity Series. He's racing for Joe Gibbs next year.
Yeah. I can't think of anything.
I do have my Braves hat on. We're up 3-1. And as of this recording, the NLCS. Mm-hmm. Fully expect them to choke and lose the next 3. Because that's just what happens. We should have already won the series.
Hopefully not.
Cody Bellinger hit that 3-run homer in Game 3.
Mm-hmm. His last game.
So, yeah. I expect that to happen fully.
I hope not.
Wearing our Charlotte shirt. They're playing football Thursday night.
Yeah. Well, I'm not.
Get the hat on.
I do. I do. I forgot which hat I had on. But, yep, I do.
Yes.
The old school logo.
Yep. But yeah, Kansas, it's I went pretty in depth with my strategy. Like I did last week, I covered on a lot of the average finishes because the tire model was the same as Las Vegas, Michigan, and Kansas. Texas was. So now we did have another race at Texas. Now we have Las Vegas, same tire model at Kansas that they used there. Las Vegas, Michigan, Texas, the other Kansas race, and Michigan. Forgot that one. I may have mentioned it, but Michigan. Also, the same left side as Nashville and Charlotte. So I got to throw 2 more races in there, see how they performed with that. So that's part of my strategy. Yep. Yep, it's 1.3.
Yeah.
But no, it's not a mile and a half whatsoever. It doesn't race like one at all.
It doesn't race like Kansas. That's odd.
Huh. Yep. So I did take that into perspective when making my lineup.
Yeah.
I didn't get to look at the odds, but I'm sure Kyle Larson's the favorite to win.
Oh, I would say for certain. I'll look it up later, and I'll talk about that a little later on.
Yep. But as far as anything for preparation this week, 9 sets of tires, 267 laps. I can't think of anything else, really.
I can't think of anything either. Going to be a cut and dry race.
Yep.
Pretty much, I feel like.
Yeah, these races are pretty predictable. And I say that now I have a wreck fest, but last week they did have those wrecks with Stenhouse. There were some key drivers that got caught in Bubba Wallace's thing earlier on in the race, and luckily I didn't go with Stenhouse or Priest, but I seriously thought about it.
Yeah, a couple of those guys. Well, Stenhouse was in my lineup, and then I feel like there was another Logano. Yeah, Logano had trouble, and
engine trouble.
Yeah, I didn't do good last week.
Truex, he had trouble. Got wrecked. Denny Hamlin, but Denny still scratched back for a
I had Denny Hamlin too.
Yeah. It was an eventful race.
Yeah, I had all kinds of screw-ups last week.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got too.
So we might as well go ahead and see what DraftKings has to offer for us this week.
Alrighty.
So, No shock. Kyle Larson starting on the pole at 11.7. So they actually priced him where they needed to be. Last week they did not give him respect at all. He wasn't even the most expensive driver last week. Kevin Harvick was. And so they're making you take a little more risk if you pick Larson. You've got to make some cuts in your lineup. Denny Hamlin starting in 6th at 11,000. A little high, honestly. Kyle Busch starting in 4th at 10.7. Martin Truex Jr. starting in 7th at 10.4. And Chase Elliott starting in 5th at 10,000. So we have 5 10K drivers. And after those 5, you go Bowman and Byron, and then you get into the Penske drivers. Blaney, Keselowski, skip over Harvick, and Logano. So those are your playoff drivers. Joey Logano is 8,700, and he's a playoff driver. Keep that in mind while you're making your lineup. I definitely think you can put him in there. He just doesn't have a great record at mile and a half, and that 30th place finish or wherever he ended up last week did not help his numbers at all. He's actually one of the worst on mile and a half among, I put down like 20-some drivers to get these stats. So out of the 6 races that I mentioned, so you got 2 at Vegas, the Texas race, the Kansas race, the Michigan race. Am I counting right? Hold on a second. 2 at Vegas, Kansas, Michigan, Nashville, Charlotte. Yes.
And then Texas.
In Texas. Yes.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to put in my head here. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I may have left out one of the races. I was doing my
Oh, well.
my math. But hey, this is what we got here. So out of those races, I did a little formula in terms of the mile and a half strategy here. So if I did miss a race, I might be missing 1 pointer there. But hey, we can have an outlier. I think I forgot one of the Vegas races. But anyway, you do have Alex Bowman starting in 25th at 9.8 and William Byron starting in 9th at 9.5. So that's pretty interesting with your Hendrick drivers. The number 1 pick, so my stone cold lock this week is Kyle Larson. I don't care that he won at Texas. He is just way too good at these tracks. I have him as an average finish of 5.8, which is second best among the whole entire field. I still think track position is very key at this track. He did lead a lot of laps the last Kansas race. I want to say it was like 130 some. So that's something to keep in mind too, looking into this week. So I think he's my lock to pick. I do think a lot of people will go with him, but I do think Alex Bowman's going to be interesting. Now, Alex Bowman is a decent pick, don't get me wrong, but his average finishes on the mile and a half is around 18th, and that's about a 7-point positional value there. So he'll get you around 30 couple points is what you're looking at, which is about good enough for top 12 or so finish, basically, which is not terrible. William Byron, starting in 9th, he is my second best pick. His average finish is 6th, 6.3 roughly at the mile and a half. That is actually good enough for third best among the whole entire field. So I really like William Byron. The best driver on mile and a half. Can you take a guess who the...
Probably Kyle Busch.
Well, on this tire model, let's put it that way. Yes, Kyle Busch. So 5.5. Last week, as I mentioned, his finishes were crazy good. And I did have him in my lineup. Somehow I managed to get Larson and Kyle. This week it ain't happening, really. But Larson and Byron are 2 very good picks. Kevin Harvick starting in 11th. His average finish is 9th here career-wise. So they started racing this track in 2001. He's got 30-some starts. 9.1 is very good for 20 years worth of racing. And his average finish on this tire model is 7.5. So that is a very interesting pick. He did run well at Texas, so look for him to be a good option. Brad Keselowski is another one that's good. His average finish is around 9.5 at these tracks. Let's just look here. Chase Elliott's 10.5, which is his exact average finish at Kansas too, by the way. 10.5. You look at Chase, he kind of just gets 5th, 6th every time. He's not really dominating, which is pretty weird, to be honest with you. Larson and Byron are so much faster than the other Hendrick drivers. Chase is fast, but they don't have the same speed, for sure.
Chase is just consistent at those mile and a half.
Yeah.
He's not really a guy that's going to
dominate.
Yeah, really.
Yep. And Byron led, 50 laps last week? 50 or 60?
Something like that.
He had a lot of fastest laps, too, 50 or 60 of those, too. I just feel like they've got the program down pat, and they're going to run well. It's the end of the year, and I don't really see anything changing in terms of the teams. It's going to be pretty cut and dry, like you mentioned earlier. That's the way I would look at it anyway, in terms of my research. Ryan Blaney's pretty good. He's got an average finish around 13th, but he's starting second, so wouldn't try to go that route. The Joe Gibbs drivers, you got Denny Hamlin at 9.5 and Martin Truex Jr. at a 16. So he's not performing well with this tire. Probably would fade Truex. Starting in 7th, though, it's intriguing. He just didn't have the speed last week. I mean, Daniel Suarez ran him over. He's like, I can only lift so much, So that kind of tells me where that team's at in terms of speed. Mm-hmm. Tyler Reddick performed amazing. I don't know that he really had a chance to win the race, but he should have finished top 5 for sure. And he was overdriving stuff at Texas, and he's definitely a lot of people compare him to Kyle Larson because their dirt background. He does race very aggressive, and he kind of races like Larson did in the 42. Larson, I still believe's way better in that car, and I believe the 8 car is probably better than what Larson was in, truthfully.
It's pretty close, I feel like, but yeah, it's that similar build and that similar funding, I guess you want to call it that.
Yeah. So Tyler Reddick is a very interesting option. I would definitely consider him. Average finish of 13th at these tracks, so keep that in mind too. Kurt Busch, you're looking around 14, 15, so that's not a bad pick. You're going to lose a little value, him starting in 13th. But scrolling on down to the bottom at the value picks, so I'm going to cut it off at Anthony Alfredo, and I didn't check his stats. Last week he was around 27th, and he got in a wreck, so he's probably, at those tracks, he's got around a 27th average finish. So he might get a couple points there added from where he's starting, but not worth it. Cole Custer, you're looking at 24.3, so worse than where he's starting. Eric Jones had a great outing at Texas, although those cautions late helped him get up higher for sure. But his average is around 19. Michael McDowell, I picked him last week actually. He started in 16th, was a very lowly owned driver, and I believe he will be again this week, starting in 18th. His average finish on the tire model is 18th. So you're looking about where he's starting. And at that price, finishing 18th, you get 20-some points. And I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if you're picking dominators, that's going to pretty much put you in a winning situation. But Chris Buescher, starting in 21st, is a pretty decent pick, 18.8, so around 19th, so you get 2 spots there. But the driver that I would lock in this week as my sleeper is Daniel Suarez. So Daniel Suarez is starting in 16th. Very unattractive spot. Terrible, actually. Nobody's going to pick him. I feel like it. Maybe if they watch this, they might. But he's 6,400. And remember, he ran very well at Nashville.
He did.
And that did help his stats. But honestly, he ran well last week. I think did he get a top 10?
He was hovering around the top 10. I know that. I don't remember if he finished.
Got 10th.
Oh, he got 10th.
I know him and Truex had that deal, so he had to have been in the top 10. So, yeah, he's got really good finishes at these tracks. And Trackhouse has the Richard Childress connection there, the ECR engines. So that helps him quite a bit because Reddick looked strong. Dillon looked okay. Dillon looked like a top 15 about like every week.
And the fact that there's under 300 laps in this race, your track position and your finishing position is going to matter the most regardless. So if he gets you a top 10 again, I mean, that's totally worth it.
His average finish at the tracks with this tire is 13.
That's good.
That's very good at that price. Yeah. And it's just a situation where there's so many good drivers to pick from, starting position-wise. Ricky Stenhouse starting in 28th. Ryan Newman in 31st. Look here at Ryan Preece at 32nd. You know what Ryan Preece's average on this tire model is? 29. So there's a reason why he's that low. But people are still in cash games. They're going to go after it.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I kind of did middle way of the year. But it's because that's always the weirdest part of the season. You're still trying to figure out where. But when you have the numbers at the end of the year, it's kind of like you need to kind of go with it analytical-wise.
All right.
So Daniel Suarez would be my lock. pick there. That would leave us with 7,400. I do think you have to pick one of these options down here. Busher, that leaves you with 8,000, and then you have a few options up here as well. Bubba Wallace, round 21st is where he's finishing. Ryan Newman, round 22nd. So Newman is not a bad option. He's just a little high. Almirola, 18th. So you get a little value there. Austin Dillon, you're looking at 15th, so a little less than where he's starting. Ross Chastain is another. I really expected Chastain to have a little better numbers, but 23 is his average finish at these tracks at Tire Model. So you're looking, all your top picks. Bowman, 18th average finish, starting in 25th. Okay, that's a lot of money to pay for that, but it's not a terrible option. Chastain, you're looking at a couple value points there, 24th to 23rd. That would leave you 20-some points. Why not pick a driver like Michael McDowell down here at 18? And you already, well, I repeated that. You've already got an upper hand on the people you're playing by picking Michael McDowell. Or I'm going to be honest with you, you could pick Cole Custer and probably be fine. I mean, I don't know. When you're looking this cheap, or DiBenedetto. So DiBenedetto would be my other pick with Suarez, as I mentioned last week, and I won't cover it too much. But his average finish is 12.8, so he's looking at 13.
Where did he won at Kentucky, right?
Last year.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I was trying to remember where he won that race at, and it was Kentucky.
Yep.
I kind of thought it was Kansas for some reason, but never mind.
Yep, it was one of those green-white checkered deals, and he went on the high side and somehow just made it stick and passed everybody.
Yep.
How about Parker Kligerman starting in this race in 40th? Don't pick Parker Kligerman. I mean, it's not the Truck Series. He's not going to outperform the drivers in the Cup Series. I wouldn't call him. Yeah, he's just not going to do that well in the Gaunt Brothers Racing car. David Starr picked up, I want to see how many points. He got 34 points last week. He finished 23rd basically because everybody wrecked. That big wreck did help them, but 34 points for David Starr, that would have been a steal. And looking down here, I'm just trying to see. BJ McLeod also had a good finish. He got 33 for you. He finished 22nd. Don't think that's going to happen, and definitely wouldn't go off that strategy. If you did that, props to you. If you saw that coming, MBM finishing top 25, I never would have even thought that. But especially at a mile and a half.
Nope.
But yeah, my pick to win the race ultimately is Kyle Larson, excuse me. Might have made a slip there, and Kyle Busch will actually win it. But Kyle Larson is my pick to win.
It's possible.
Brad Keselowski is very interesting to me. I would maybe go towards him because he looks strong at Texas. But my second pick, in DraftKings-wise, would be William Byron, and my sleeper would be Daniel Suarez at 64. I think that'll help you save a lot of money there. So that's my strategy going forward with DraftKings. Just look at those races, the mile-and-a-half tracks, Vegas, Michigan, Kansas, Nashville, and Charlotte. So I think that's what I would roll with. So that's all I got for DraftKings. Let's throw it over to Yachts on FanDuel.
Alrighty. I didn't really pay attention to the DraftKings pricing model this week. But, more of the same, it seems like, with FanDuel. There's a little bit of shifting within the first tier, but not a ton. Like last week, there's only 4 in the top tier. You got Kyle Larson, of course, at the top, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Chase Elliott. So, really, if you can get 2 of those guys, you're in really good shape. But it's going to be difficult to get 2 of those guys and then get the other, mid-tier, lower-tier people that you were looking to find in your lineup this week. But you can go a little risky, and this is one of those tracks, and I feel like it's a lot of times with a mile-and-a-half track, you got to go a little risky because it's just the starting position kind of warrants that you have to go a little risky.
Yep.
But let's see. I am going to get one right out of the way. We're not going to go with Kyle Larson.
Man.
Yeah, I just think in the back of my mind, I just feel like you can do it without him.
I kind of feel like
you're going to have so many people picking him.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can do it without him.
And watching NASCAR, it just seems that he's not in a must-win situation. They might try something. Even though it's the last mile and a half, they might try something special and then fall back. I could see that.
But we're going to go with Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin has a good history here. 9.0 in his last 5. You know, compared to other drivers, you know, it's not at the top. It's close to the top, but it's not at the top. But what I really wanted to focus on, he is a winner. 3-time winner. And he's won twice in the last 5. And other than Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin's far and away been the best driver of the playoffs if you take Kyle Larson out of the equation. So you're paying $1,000 less, and I said this last week. I picked Denny Hamlin last week. You're paying $1,000 less for similar value. You're not getting the same value, but similar value. And he can win the race. So that's what we're going with this week with our highest, most expensive driver this week. So on average, we'll have nearly just a little above 9,100 left to spend, but we'll focus on that a little later on. We're going to move down. Don't really consider these guys again. Mile and a half, they're just not going to have the equipment. Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie, they're having the Stroker Ace. I guess honoring Stroker Ace, the movie, and they're going to have some paint schemes from that. Anthony Alfredo in 4,000. I considered Anthony Alfredo 29th. He finished 23rd in the last Kansas race. That could be a good play at 4,000. But I'm not going to go with Anthony Alfredo. If you're feeling really lucky, 1,000 to 1 odds for Anthony Alfredo to win the race.
Yeah, right.
If you're feeling really lucky. But, you know, if everybody wrecks and Anthony Alfredo's at the top,
it's true.
Put $1 down on it and get $1,000 back.
Yep.
Be pretty wild. Not going to say it's going to happen. It's going to have a heck of a lot to happen. But I think you could consider him this week. Put him in your lineup.
Yeah.
Don't expect to win, obviously. But
it gets you a top 25.
Yeah, I think you could. We're going to move up, though. Michael McDowell's one of those guys AustYn was talking about, and he's solid at these tracks, these mile and a half tracks. That's about where he ends up, and like I was saying earlier, the lap count's not going to matter, especially, in FanDuel or DraftKings, because in FanDuel, I mean, most of the people, if they're running at the end, you're going to be like 0.1 different, 0.2 different, and that's from the top position down to 35. So there's not going to be a whole lot of difference with the laps completed and laps led. It's not going to help you a ton. The finishing position is going to matter the most out of anything. I had Ricky Stenhouse bubbled in earlier today, but I changed my mind. He just has a decent history at these mile and a halves. Not really a great history at Kansas, and he's not. I don't think he's had a top 10 in his career at Kansas. Kind of like Texas last week, but he's had like consistent top 15 finishes. That's where he hovers around. Well, basically, is every track he hovers around the top 15, but especially at mile and a halves. Ryan Newman, you could go with Ryan Newman starting in 31st. I think a lot of people that's still going to catch some people's eyes. Starting 31st, but I don't feel confident in him, especially at this point in his season and his career. If I want to go darker, but I don't feel safe going with him this week. Bubba Wallace could be a guy to consider. 27th, that's a good starting spot, and he could get you a top 15. I wouldn't expect any more than a top 15. I wouldn't expect a top 10. But it could happen. It could. But our next guy and our least expensive guy is going to be Chris Buescher. I considered Daniel Suarez, and I think that could be an interesting pick right there. And there's a lot of things you can go with on FanDuel and DraftKings this week and make a good lineup. But Chris Buescher is going to be our guy in our lineup this week. 17.0 in his last 5 at Kansas. And what I focused on were, can he get you a top 10? And he can. He's got 2 top 10s in the last 5, and he's got 3 in his career in 11 races. And he 2 of those were with JTG Daugherty, and he finished 8th. If I'm not mistaken, he finished 8th at the last Kansas race. So he can get you a top 10. That's what you want. Starting 21st, that'll yield you a little bit of points, 11 spots. I think he can do it. 6,700. That saves you a lot of money in the long run when you're filling out the rest of your lineup. And I think he's just a great value right there. We're going to move up, though. Eric Almirola is solid at the 1.5 miles. Matt DiBenedetto is solid at the 1.5 miles. Chastain's not great. Chase Briscoe, I feel like we still really don't have enough of a sample size with him and some of these people, but we'll see about him. I'm not sure. Austin Dillon, solid at 1.5 miles. Kurt Busch, really solid at 1.5 miles. So you could go with a lot of these guys. We're not going to go with any of them, but you could go with a lot of these guys, and they could save you a lot of money. And the goal, I feel like one of the big goals when you're filling out your lineup is to pick playoff drivers.
Yep.
As many as you can if the starting spot warrants that in a lot of cases. But like I said earlier, the finishing position is going to be the most important thing this week. And we're going to move up. Christopher Bell, not awesome at 1.5 miles this year. Starting 10th, I would advise not to pick him, but he could get you top 10. It's definitely not out of the question. Tyler Reddick was another guy that I had written down, and I decided not to go with him. But I'm going to say a couple things about him. 13.5, it looks like. I can't read my own writing. 13.5 in the last 4. Well, his only 4 in the Cup Series. And going back to the Xfinity Series, 3.0 in his 3 races. So he's got two second-place finishes, and I think he had a 5th-place finish. So really solid at this track. Solid at 1.5 miles. Starting 12th. Top 10 is definitely not out of the question. But we're not going to go with him this week. 9,200. It seems, I'm not going to say it seems high, but it kind of seems high. When you're looking at some of these other guys like Kurt Busch, Austin Dillon. I think he's in that area, and he's $1,000 more. But I guess they had to place him somewhere. But we're going to go, he's going to be picked a lot, but we're going to go with him. Alex Bowman, 8.4 in his last 5. In that span, 2 top 5s. And since joining Hendrick, or since he's been riding in a Hendrick vehicle car.
Same thing.
Yeah, well, basically. 9.5. So when he's in good equipment, he runs very well at Kansas. And he can do it again this week, and he's starting 25th. I think he's on the border of must pick. And these Hendrick cars, they're solid at 1.5 miles. I mean, Kyle Larson's proving it every week. And William Byron's he's proven it this year for sure. And Bowman's done well. And Chase Elliott's Chase Elliott, so he does consistent pretty much everywhere. Alex Bowman at 9,000, great value. But then again, he's going to be picked a lot, so you can go with a lot of these drivers in that area and still get similar value, but you're not going to get those spots from the 25th starting position moving on up. Look ahead, we have a 10.4, well, basically 10,400 average finish among our last 2 drivers. Could go with a lot here. I'm just going to see if we go Kyle Larson. You'll have 6,300 left to spend, You could get Bubba Wallace. You could get Ricky Stenhouse. You could get Ryan Newman. I mean, you could go that route, but you're setting yourself up for less playoff drivers. And do you really want to do that? Probably not. So Kyle Larson may be a little too high to shoot for, but we have a lot of different other options we can go with. And I swear I have a lineup set up. I'm just trying to explore some other opportunities that you could do. Martin Truex was the guy I was considering. I wrote him down, but I'm glad I kind of changed my mind with that after hearing Austin, what he had to say about Truex and that Gibbs equipment. The Gibbs equipment, I don't know if it's been underperforming, but they're on the brink of the cutoff line, a lot of those guys. And we'll see about that.
Yeah, Truex started really hot to me this year, and then he just cooled. He's really gotten cold.
That's it. I feel like he's just really kind of cooled down after the last few weeks. But he has a good history at Kansas. And I'm trying to think of some of the stats that I wrote down because I kind of marked it all out. But he has a good history at Kansas. And I would consider him. Obviously, I did consider him, but I think there are better options that you could go with. Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick has the best career finish at Kansas among current drivers. And you could definitely go with him. But as Chase Elliott says, it's merry off season for Kevin Harvick. So, maybe he'll just hang around the top 10. And if you're paying that much, you kind of want a top 5. I feel, well, it's really not paying a bunch, $9,500, but a driver like Kevin Harvick, you expect like a top 5, if that makes sense. But he could do it. But I think he's just kind of gonna hang loose a little bit. We're gonna get it out of the way though. Brad Keselowski is gonna be our next guy off the board. In the last 5, he is tied with the best average finish, tied with Chase Elliott actually, 5.8. 4 top 5s in those last 5, and lead lap finishes in his career. He's had 22 races in his career at Kansas. 20 of those were lead lap finishes. So I think one of those he was lapped down, and then the other one he got in a crash. So really, really good finishing history here for Brad Keselowski. Starting third, not the greatest starting spot, 10,000. And it's kind of not working in his favor, but he could definitely get a top 5. And if he gets a top 5, it's not going to kill you. Even though you're losing those 2 spots, it's not going to kill you. And he could hang up there at the top. He could lead some laps. We'll see what happens, but that's a great value this week, especially when laps don't really matter as much. We have 10,800 left to spin. We could go Truex. We could go Logano, Harvick, Reddick, and I'm gonna hang on this Joe Logano train right here. I'm gonna keep on with picking him because I just feel like he's got to turn it around at some point. He's yet to do it, but I don't know. Joey Logano's just not had good luck at mile and a halves this year. He's 9,800, starting 8th. 17.7 average finish in his last 5 at Kansas. Not good. Very, very mediocre, especially for a driver of his caliber. But when I was doing my research, here's one thing I really wanted to consider. And a lot of times, you gotta take some risk. And he's a 3-time winner at Kansas. He's won 3 times here, so he's proven he can win the race. But it's boom or bust. It's boom or bust with Joey Logano. Lead lap finishes 14 in his 24 career races here. So that's at a track like this. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
That's very crazy. So I'm kind of keeping the frame of mind. If Joey Logano's running well within the first 100 laps, he's going to have a good race. If he's not, he's not. So that's kind of why I kind of went with him this week. It's make or break time really in the season, and he's got to have a win. He's at a point where I think he's already, I want to say nearly 50 points from the cutoff line. So he's got to have. He'll probably do good at Martinsville, but he's really got to have a good race or win this race to move forward. And and I say this every time, but not to say that the other drivers aren't racing aggressively to get in or maintain their standing. Joe Logano has to do it. So he has no choice at this point in the season. So we're going to clean this up. Not going to go with Kyle Larson. I think I'm going to regret it when it comes race time, but we're going to go with Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin has a good history here. 9.0 in his last 5, 3-time winner here. And that's what you want out of a $13,500 price driver. You want a potential winner, and Denny Hamlin can do it. And we're going to get another playoff driver out of the way. Brad Keselowski, 10,000, starting third. 5.8 in his last 5, tied with the best average finish in those last 5. And 2-time winner, 4 top 5s in his last 5. That's what you want. $10,000. That's great value. Joey Logano, 3-time winner, boom or bust, make or break, whatever you want to call it. 9,800, starting 8th. You know, that's probably about the value he should be in a race like this. But you'll know. I would say within the first 100 laps, like I was saying, you'll know if he'll have a good car. You know if he's going to have the car to win. And it's going to be something to watch out for, but I'm taking that risk on him. And I think a lot of people are going to be passing on him because he's not performed well at these 1.5 miles. Could open up for a more rare lineup if you want to go that route. Alex Bowman, I think he's going to be picked a lot. Honestly, in FanDuel, I think he's going to be picked the second most, just based on that starting spot. And he's 9,000. I think Kyle Larson's still going to be the most picked, but Alex Bowman, great value. 8.4 in his last 5, 9.5 average finish in his career when he's in a Hendrick car. I'm saying it a lot, but great value. It's a very good value at 9,000. And our last pick, we'll have 1,000 left over, but we're going with Chris Buescher. Starting 21st, 6,700. You want a top 10 out of him, and he's proven he can do that. He's got 3 top 10s at this track, and he's got more top 10s at 1.5 miles. He's a really solid 1.5-mile driver, and 2 top 10s in his last 5. So he's proven he can do it recently. So that's what we have lined up for FanDuel this week.
Yep, so there you go. That's our DFS strategies. The one race that I did leave out one of the Vegas races, but have no fear. Most of my stats were pretty much on par. I was looking at the results, and Suarez's spot might be a little higher than, but not really.
Yeah.
DiBenedetto's is about the same. Larson actually won Vegas, so that would probably put him higher than Kyle Busch. So, it really wasn't a big difference. So I do believe this is going to be one of the more predictable. Even though it's not a cut race, Martinsville is going to be chaotic next week.
Absolutely.
Especially if another driver wins other than Larson, it's going to be pretty wild. Mm-hmm. Either way, it's going to be pretty crazy. But just look out for the Hendrick horsepower, really. And honestly, Yachts, he got in a lot of good playoff drivers. I don't know if I'll be able to get as many because the way they price Kyle Larson. But yeah, it is a very good strategy to have. So if you like what you see here, just keep watching our videos. We got 2 more after this one, so with Martinsville and then the finale at Phoenix.
Yep.
Just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also hit the like button and hit the bell notification. Lets you know when our videos go up. We also have the comments on the bottom, so if you have anything to say or about
say it to my face.
Yeah, sure. So
I don't know, whatever.
Yep. So you got any
say
questions?
whatever you want.
Yep. So anything you want to say there, just put it down there. Also, we're on www.thesportschief.com and on Twitter and Instagram at thesportschief. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And best of luck to you at Kansas Speedway.
All right, thank you.